Alright guys, we are now into February, the second month of the year, and once again you guys have helped me choose what miniature I'm going to paint for this month as I try and tackle my pile of shame throughout the year. This month was a lot closer than last month, and for February you guys have chosen the Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, which I want to say I've been using this model lately, but not as the Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. I've actually been proxying him as the standard Chaos Lord on foot to go with, I say on foot as if he's got other options, with my Plague Marines. And I was thinking, as I was going through my bits box and thinking about what I could do with this Chaos Lord, instead of doing this one, how about I just put this guy together? Because I have the actual model for the Chaos Lord, and it's just been sitting on my shelf for so long, so now might be a good time to finally put it together and have it running alongside my Plague Marines. So I'm very sorry for misleading you all, but this month we will be painting a Death Guard Chaos Lord. The current Chaos Lord, as it is very Chaos Space Marines. There's not a whole lot of Death Guard or Nurgling bits to it. You don't actually get many extra bits with this miniature, so I'm going to have to go through my bits box and have a dig around and see what I can pull up to make it a bit more Nurgly. Another thing that I noticed when looking at the weapon options is I typically run this with the Plasma Pistol and the Plague Fist. Now unfortunately the Fist and the Plasma Pistol options are both on the same hand for this miniature. So I'm going to have to do something about that as well. Otherwise, yeah, I don't, because I don't think there's any way I can give this guy two left hands. I might be able to cut the Plasma Pistol off his left hand and put it on his right hand. It looks like that might be an option. But yeah, I'm going to have a little play around and see what we can do. Alright guys, I've just finished putting this together and giving it a bit of a zenithal prime. In terms of what I've actually done to this model, so I ended up only using about half of the original sprue from the Chaos Lord kit, and I had a look through my bits box to try and make it a bit more Death Guard like, and what I've done is I've found a Plasma Pistol, which is from the Plague Marine Champion. I've got a head from the Deathshroud set. And what else did I do? Oh, and I've got the backpack from Plague Marine set as well with a little Nurgle icon on top there. I was contemplating, changing up the legs as well, but the problem was that the Plague Marine legs are so much thicker than Chaos Space Marines one, so it didn't really look quite right. The other thing was, because of his unique kind of stance that he has on this rock, I figured it was just going to make my life a whole lot harder if I mess around with the legs, so I decided to just stick with the original legs. In terms of what else I've done, I've added a couple of tentacles. I think this one might actually be a tongue from the Demon Prince box. There's one underneath his arm here, and there is another one coming out the side here. I think these two are from the Chaos Spawn box. So yeah, altogether it was pretty easy. I didn't do anything too complicated really. I was contemplating adding, you can see how there's like a poisonous little drip thing coming out the vent here, adding some of that to the claws here, but the poison drip things that I had, which I think are from the Chaos Spawn box as well, were a bit too big for it, so I decided not to do that. In terms of what else I've done, I did cut the tactical rock in half because I think I'm going to make a resin base out of this, so I'll cast this and turn this into like a block of ice. I don't really like it when, it's such a shame when they make like part of his foot part of the actual base. It's I prefer it when it's just clean cut, the base is separated from the model, just gives you a bit more creative with bases and things. But yeah, otherwise I think it's looking pretty good. In terms of the color scheme, on the computer here in front of me, I'm looking at the Lord of Pox's model, which is coming out soon. I say soon, it might be half a year from now. And I really, really like the color scheme that they've gone for here. I've never seen a Death Guard unit with like a gray cape before, so I think I want to try and replicate that with the Chaos Lord. I really like what they've done with the rust on the sword here as well. It looks like they've kind of done a metallic color and then put some black on it and then done the rust on top of that black. I haven't really seen anyone do that before, so I'm quite excited to try that out. In terms of his armor, it looks like they've gone for standard kind of brass colors with that, I always forget what that blue color is called. I do have it, but I always forget to use it. Now this Chaos Lord does have a few Chaos icons on his arm, and he's got like a big kind of like face on his belly, so I think there'll be a couple of cool areas to really play around with some of those rust effects. I think it'll look really good. On the back, I'm just going back to the back photo, and there's actually 2 tones of cloth that they've put on this Lord of Poxes. So the backpack, the cloth covering the backpack is more of like a brown hue, whereas his cape is much cooler. It's a much cooler grey. I think I'm going to try replicate this grey one, and I don't really have too many grey colours. It looks like they've almost mixed in a little bit of brown in here as well. I might have to look up some tutorials to try figure out how they've done that. But yeah, that's the plan. In terms of the plasma pistols, I typically go for blue just because I don't have many orangey or red colours. Maybe this time I'll try out orange and give that a go. Oh, and then in terms of the base, so yeah, I said I will probably cast this rock into ice, make a resin rock. And then there's actually quite a lot of space on both sides of this, so I'll go through my bits box again and maybe try find a Nurgling or 2, see if there's something fun I can put on the sides there. It's most likely going to be on the front because I think his cape kind of gets in the way on the back. But yeah, that's the plan. Let's get into it. Alright, so I've finished casting this little tactical rock, I think is what we call them, and blue stuff, and I'm just going to try to take it out now. I've probably let it sit for about an hour and a half, I want to say. Cool, so that has come out alright, and now we've got a little mold in here. What I like to do is just get a little bit of blue tack. We're going to be filling this with UV resin, and it does look like the sun is going to come out today, which is nice because I can just put this in a windowsill and it will do its own thing. Okay, so that's sitting in there all solid now with the blue tack. One thing I will note about putting blue tack down the bottom is that, or underneath it, is that it will get very sticky if it is sitting in the sun. I just want to double check and make sure that it is kind of level because I would like to try and get as flat of a surface as possible. Not that it makes a huge difference really at the end of it, because I will typically just cover this up with more UV resin or even snow or something like that. Alright, so fill up one side of it. I try to do this a little bit on the slower side just so it doesn't fill up with any air bubbles. Come on, get into the corner there. Alright, I'm just going to let that set into place for a little bit and see if I need to top it up any further. I think that looks like it's going to be okay. So I did bring out the UV torch as well, and what I like to do is just put this over it just for a couple of seconds just to make sure that it's kind of like semi in place, because when I do pick this up and find a windowsill to put this in, I want to make sure that it hasn't moved around too much. All right, so that should be okay for now. I'll just put this over here for a second. I've been going through my bits box as well to try and find a good Nurgling to go alongside my Chaos Lord, because I feel like all of the Death Guard leaders tend to have Nurglings with them, and the one I opted to go for was this one with a cape and a sword, which I thought the cape was really fitting. They're both blowing like the same way as well, so I thought that was really cool. This one is from the Great Unclean One box, I think. And yeah, he's going to look really cool next to him. So while this is setting, I'll start painting this guy. Alright guys, it's been a few days now. I believe I've spent about 4 or 5 days in total painting this, and apologies for not getting much footage for the kind of like second half of this project. My son is now 5 months old, and basically once I put him to sleep, I might have 45 minutes or an hour, and then of that time I might have about 15 or 20 minutes to paint. So it's very hard to kind of find the time to set up all of the camera and get some shots while I'm also trying to finish painting this miniature. You also saw my wife has recently been getting into that, it's like a paint by numbers thing. So they give you a whole thing of paints, and they number each color, and then you just follow the numbers. It's like a coloring book for adults. But yeah, so we've kind of been spending the evenings like painting together recently. It's been a lot of fun. But without further ado, let me reveal to you my Death Guard Chaos Lord, and then after that I'll talk you through what I have done. Okay, so here he is, and I have to say, this is probably one of my favorite miniatures that I have painted to date. I think when you kitbash things and kind of make them your own, it makes them that little bit more special, and I absolutely love how this has turned out. I think it is so cool. Now, in terms of the kind of like the miniature itself, my first kind of concerns when I was kitbashing this was with the Plague Fist and the Plasma Pistol. I was thinking, I'm essentially just making a Plague Marine champion. And if I had switched out the body and the legs and given it a Plague Marine head as well, I think it would have felt too much just like a standard Plague Marine champion. So I'm happy that I decided to keep the standard legs and chest and cape and things that it came with. The actual kit bashing that I did to this model is so subtle, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I love the little Nurgling with him. I think it suits him so well, like both having that same cape flap the same way. It looks so cool. In terms of the cape, I tried my best to recreate the Lord of Pox's color scheme, and I think I got kind of close to it. I noticed there were lots of kind of like dots or like splashes on the Lord of Pox's one. So what I did is I got like a little toothbrush, and I was like flicking paint off the toothbrush to try and recreate that look on the cape, and I think it turned out all right. Yeah, and I'm really happy with how it looks. The plasma pistol, this is the first time I've done a red and orange plasma pistol, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out too. It took a couple of tries. I was experimenting with more yellows and things at first, but I ended up going with just red and orange, and then I used the airbrush to just spray it a little bit, which was also a bit scary, you know, airbrushing this right at the end, because you never know how that's going to turn out until you actually do it. The resin casting with the rock turned out absolutely fine. It's almost identical. I did take a photo, I'll put it up in size. And then I just went for a pretty standard base that I do with a bit of snow. I painted it turquoise and then did some UV resin over the top there as well to make it look like ice. I didn't put any scratches in this one. I might have to get a knife and do that as well. But in terms of the other details, yeah, the tentacles came out pretty well. Oh, the armor and the rust effect, which I tried. So I did try a couple of new things this time around. I went for my standard brass color with, and then darkening it up with the Basicellum Grey contrast paint. Then on top of that, I used the that blue, something rather oxide paint, and added some touches. And I also added some Typhus Corrosion. It's the first time I've ever done that. And it's quite an interesting texture paint, that one. It creates, I guess it creates, yeah, kind of like a rust effect. It's quite a thick, textury brown paste. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. And then I also got some of the Riser Rust Orange dry brushing paint, and I used a little bit of that too. So it was quite cool because I've never had that much depth on my armor before, because that's like 5 different paints or colors that I used just for the trim and the armor, and I really like how it's turned out. The fur that he's got on his cape here, I played around with the different colors on that as well. Initially I was going for black fur with like white tips, but the color was too similar to the cape, which is why I changed it to brown with kind of like a lighter tan. And then otherwise, yeah, just like he's got a few other small details on him, which I tried to like edge highlight and things and make it stand out. I love this model so much. I'm definitely going to be running the Chaos Lord in my army a lot more moving forward. I've actually been running him quite a lot lately. Anyways, that's enough about me talking about this model. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you like the final result of this as much as I do, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. But otherwise, I will see you guys next time.